Good morning, New York. How are you? Hi, guys, we made it to February.
We sure did. I actually thought it was January still today, so I'm glad I'm here. Thank you, guys. As Mac just mentioned, I'm Elizabeth Cotogno. I'm the Group Director for Agency Partnerships over Media and Insight at Kroger Precision Marketing. And at Kroger, we really believe that data science and technology make people's lives easier. And so the future of commerce is really dependent on us working together to build more meaningful messages and experiences. So I'm really excited to be here today with Meghan Johnson. Like Mac just mentioned, she is the head of consumer experiences and media at Mondelez. And her career has spanned agency side, CPG side, and you've crossed the Atlantic. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All right, we'll dive in. As you look at the landscape of new tech media, what is your framework for exploring these opportunities? How do you prioritize? Do you have any categorization when you're exploring this?
It's a great question. We're jumping right in, aren't we? So how we think about emerging tech at Mondelez. So we've been on a bit of a journey as an organization. We are not known to be the early adopters when it comes to new tech. We like to kind of sit in more of the fast follow, and that's a way that we sort of diversified the risk that we have testing new emerging tech. Now, that's changed over the years. We've spent a lot of time really focusing on elevating a smaller number of partners from sort of transactional relationships into more strategic relationships. And with that comes a host of benefits. One of the things, we can have conversations about business context that we wouldn't necessarily have with some of our longer tail partners. And because of that, we really get into the why behind why we're using some of the new emerging tech with these partners. It allows us to craft really deep relationships so that we do become hand raisers for alpha and beta opportunities, again, with a smaller group of partners. And we do so with a bit of structure behind it. So we do look at learning agendas that we craft, that we look at an annual basis. My team is really fortunate that we have such a large stable of incredible brands, everything from Cliff to Oreo, Sour Patch Kids. But because of that, we are able to almost play a symphony. We're able to test, learn, and then scale what works on a single brand and then across the portfolio, which means, again, we're diversifying the risk. We're able to take, again, advantage of those alpha and beta opportunities with these partners. And then not only do we scale what works across the portfolio, but across the world as well.
Yeah, and it's nice that you guys are testing and learning throughout that. It is a business need, right? You're talking about it's a business need to be staying on top of all the technology. So it's amazing. Can you tell us more about why emerging technologies are so important to Mondelez?
It's all about the consumer for us. So for emerging tech, we see three sort of big opportunities that we use to evaluate. One is better understanding of our consumers. The more information that we have, not only of our consumers today, but of consumers in general, the more we're actually able to give back to the business on an enterprise level. This feeds into things like identifying what is the next crazy flavor of Oreo we're going to come out with. It really looks at how we're able to then target against who these consumers are. Secondly, it helps us to better design and deliver brand experiences. At the end of the day, what we truly care about is the experience that a consumer has of our brands. And that goes above and beyond a pure focus on media, and it includes creative and content as well. This is huge because it means that we are able to use some of this tech to be more efficient, but more importantly, more effective in the communications that we have. And then third, we do see opportunity when it comes to internal focus. We like to use the phrase automate the doing to elevate the thinking, but the more that we can use tech to help automate some of the rote skills that we had in the past, the more it frees up our time as marketers to focus on higher strategy, higher order things that we're then able to feed back in to create better experiences for consumers.
We feel very strongly, too, that putting the consumer first is really at the center of everything. So definitely a lot of synergies there. How did you guys build a culture of innovation and supporting that?
This was really not an easy road. So if anybody's ever seen Ted Lasso, there's a Believe banner, right, that everybody taps as they go out for the game. And at Mondelez, we had a series of principles that we had as part of our leadership skills. And one of those principles was embracing agility over perfection. And as leaders in the organization, we had that banner, agility over perfection, and we had everybody tap it, every day in the office. And I'll tell you, we then had an awards ceremony, and one of the categories was fearless failure. And as a leadership team, we were thinking, this is great. This is great. Look at us embracing, this level of risk, looking at the organization. And out of 856 brand country combinations, we had not one submission into that award. And suddenly we realized there was a lot more to be done than to just simply ask our people to be learning, learning at a much faster pace. We really needed to give a little bit more structure and a little bit more incentive for a very KPI-driven organization. So there's a couple of things that we did. One I mentioned before, the learning agendas with the partners was key. So that way there was much more of a framework in terms of intention on what we wanted to learn and then active use of what we can scale those learnings to. We also had a big issue with focus. So a lot of times what we were seeing is that our marketers and our brands were really looking after far too many things, and we needed to give them some time and some space to be developing their capabilities to really have that ability to learn what some of this new emerging tech was. So to my team, we gave a 20% requirement for them to use 20% of their time specifically on learning new capabilities. That meant over the past year, getting their hands on, things like ChatGPT, really going deep into learning some over the past couple of years, things like CTV, things like retail media networks and their extensions, and how we can be thinking about it. That capability build was essential, and that level of focus in giving them the amount of time and space to really, really increase their capability was key in allowing them to really dabble and then again to share in their learnings. It was a big shift to go from the idea of win or lose to win or learn, and that's what we had to do.
Yeah, I love that. Very intentional. I love the 20%. I think I might be trying to learn that too. I'm going to take that back from today. But I really get jazzed when you say fearless failure. I think that is a wonderful thing, especially with the new technology. We're all learning, and that is a great mantra for the team. All right, our next one. What kind of new media technology were you most interested in last year, and what kind of success did you see?
Can we say it all together, everyone? It was Gen AI. So we, like most companies, we're very interested. And listen, AI, machine learning, these are not new things, and they're not new things for Mondelez or for many of you guys out there. We've been using this in our media buys for years and years and years. What has changed is the generative part of Gen AI and the ubiquitous use, the fact that so many of our partners, so many of our competitors were starting to get their hands on Gen AI and the potential application across the business. So along with our deep learning agendas, we did volunteer, I think, for every alpha beta opportunity. I think my my reps are sick of me calling them, asking to be a hand raiser. But we had some really incredible wins that came out of last year, in addition to, and to be fair, some learnings. So one of the great wins in India, Oreo as an example, they were able to, leveraging Gen AI, create personalized happy birthday messages for each individual that went to the Oreo site, which was incredible because it was not just about the tech and the learning about the tech or the process and how to do that, but it was actually to the benefit of the consumer. It was an experience that a consumer really enjoyed at the end of the day. There were some things that weren't quite as successful. If I look across markets, we did several tests with Google as an example for Demand Gen, one of their new products, which really looks at how you can take content and deliver it across their platforms in a way that is much smarter, makes a lot more sense. There's certain brand country combinations that we nailed it. We saw incredible gains across Brazil, Brazil, across India, and with some brands that it did not perform. And so the learnings that we had when we start to look at the delta between what works and what doesn't, those learnings, what was most important and most successful then in us getting smarter, and what we then needed to do and transform with things like making sure we had distinct assets in a content library that could be stripped, which wasn't necessarily our modus of operation last year.
I have spent far too much time thinking about the personalized Oreos. The personalized Oreos birthday song, since you mentioned it last week, I think in my house it could have been viral, like Taylor Swift status. I'm thinking about my husband and my daughter saying whose song is better, her bringing that to 3K, telling all of her friends. I love that. I think it's a really exciting way to bring AI forward. Personalization at scale is possible, and that's something we're very passionate about at Kroger. You're speaking our love language when you talk about that, so that's really awesome. For our next question, the media tech world has been under disruption, right? With cookie deprecation, with changing consumer habits, with the continued focus on programmatic waste. What solutions do you think are out there that marketers can lean on to solve for some of these challenges?
Yeah, for us, this was a huge continued signal that we were on the right path. So historically, as an organization, we've outsourced a lot. We have a very lean team that sits client side at Mondelez, and we do treat our partners as extensions of our team, and that's whether they're a JBP, whether they're Kroger, or whether one of our media creative agencies. Now, what we saw is that in a typical FMCG fashion, what we really needed to have is zero first-party data and a far bigger focus than we had traditionally had to date. With the deprecation of the cookie, with so many things that you talk about in the disruption, ownership of our own data became the number one most important priority for us to really be building against. So that was a big focus of ours for the last couple of years. Now we see an even bigger opportunity as we think about building, large language models in-house. What feeds those are the data that we have, and that becomes even more important for us, both from a consumer understanding point of view, the design and delivery of consumer experiences, and then how we measure really what works for us.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about the data and making sure you have that, because we all have been learning, right? Gen AI is cool. Gen AI, it is badass, but it is so important to have the right data that's feeding into that, right? The data fidelity of what goes into this technology matters. And so it's really important for everyone out here to make sure that they are understanding and aware of the data that is fueling all of this technology. So more data, more sophisticated, smart data is really, what we're focused on. What 3 pieces of advice would you give to brands who want to step up their media innovation efforts? And where should they start?
A very good question. So 3 pieces of advice. So one, I'm going to tell you guys, consumers don't care that you use Gen AI. Consumers really don't care that you're using Kroger data to target them on video. What is really essential as we look at emerging tech is keeping an eye on the focus of the consumer experience, because that is what matters. That is what makes a difference. How we do that changes. We can be more efficient. We can be more effective by leveraging a lot of this tech, but you have to continue to keep in mind the actual consumer experience. And mind you, even with the application of a lot of emerging tech in the media space, the integration with creative is absolutely essential. It is a marriage, it is a partnership, and it's something that when done right creates the magic and the exponential growth that you look for as a brand, as an organization. I think, too, where we were able to unlock a lot of the cultural aspect in terms of capability build and emerging tech was decreeing and having a focus. And it wasn't just for my team that, of course, I can go out and say, yes, please spend more of your time learning this. You really need to do it. I had to do it too, because this is, these are big, big, big capability unlocks that you really need to understand to then be able to manage now and in the future. So as an example, with my 20% of time, I've been learning Python, which I never thought was going to be a thing.
Oh, wow, look at you.
Not like I'm going to go code anytime, but it was important for me to really learn the language of then how to eventually train a model, or at least be able to have a conversation about how it works from the inside out. So that became really important. The other thing on capability build is also looking across your organization. So some of the learnings that we had last year, if we did not have our legal team on board, if we did not have our IT team, if we did not have our INA team on board and really understanding these new emerging tech and what we can and can't do, what are we liable for, we were going nowhere. We were going nowhere fast. So as much as we want to train and build the capabilities of our own team of marketing, we've got to make sure that our partners within the organization are learning at the same rate that we are in order to move further faster. I think the third thing I would say is just to stay optimistic. So sometimes, I mean, we're gonna do a lot of test and learn, as we always have over the years, and some things are gonna work and fly, and some things aren't. And that's okay. I think about my daughter, who's now 20 months old, and it's been a wild ride over the past almost 2 years. But what's been fascinating is watching her do little things like learning to crawl then walk, learning new words, learning sign language, which we were chatting about before. And she, no matter how many times she falls down or she doesn't know the word, she keeps trying, and eventually she gets up, and eventually she does go and run. And so you need to keep just an optimistic, positive mindset as you're going through these testing and scaling phases, and really know and really believe that this tech is something that can help, again, deliver more efficiency or more effectiveness.
There was so much goodness in everything you said. I love the optimism. I can't believe you're learning Python. That is incredibly impressive. And I think when you were talking about efficiency, right, it is the right message at the right time to the right consumer. And that is where retail media really can play in that space. You talked about AI and language models, those are not new, but it's really how can we advance it and continue to learn. So it's all really exciting stuff, and hopefully things that everyone is taking away here. And then one last question for you, and we're going to talk about the consumer side of it now. As a consumer, what is the coolest new technology you've recently encountered or that you would like to encounter? I'll give you a second to think about it, and I'll tell you, I'm pretty simple. I get excited. At first I was creeped out by it, but now I get really excited by when I'm writing an email, it finishing the word for me or writing 2 more words. I find it to be so helpful. I'm not a great speller, and it's not disruptive. So if it's the wrong word, it's okay. It doesn't disrupt me. So that's like technology that I'm loving. So just throwing ideas out there. You might be not as simple as I am. You might have something more chic.
Oh, no. I mean, I think of actually some of the tech that we've been using lately. I oversee LATAM as well, and I unfortunately am, incredibly American in the fact that I only know one language. But my
Python,
team, two, almost two, one.
Give yourself credit.
Let's be fair. But my team, based in Mexico and Colombia and in Brazil, they have recently actually been using tech to translate themselves, right, into English, because they find they're so much more comfortable and able to really express themselves in a way that they can't with their incredible knowledge of English. So it's wonderful. So you open up a presentation and they'll say, Meg, no, wait. And then they'll press play, and it's an AI version of them, speaking, sort of the intro.
Wow.
It's very cool.
The first time that happened, that was probably a little bit jarring, but that's really unbelievable. I love that. Yes. No one has done that for us yet at Kroger. Maybe it's because we're U.S. focused, but that's pretty cool. I love that.
Yes. So I just think that there's a load of opportunity. I mean, there's for Mondelez, right? Snacking as a category is inherently incredibly personal. It's something that you share with friends and family. It's something that you literally eat. So it is very, very sort of personal category, and it makes sense then that we do have experiences that that are personalized to the individual, that do meet them in the right place at the right time, and with that sense of relevancy for the consumer. So leveraging emerging tech in order to better deliver those experiences, in order to better understand who our consumer is, and in order to better to make better decisions, better, smarter decisions as we really wrap in measurement is incredibly important for us. We won't always get it right. In fact, I have a laundry list now of things that we get
Fearless
wrong.
failure.
Fearless failure. But we find that we learn more when we fail versus when we have success. Because a lot of times we will do, done and dusted case studies about something fabulous that happened, where the real learnings come and actually where the real value and benefit comes to Mondelez is when we are sharing the issues that we've had in process, the issues that we've had in approach, in briefing, as some of the team from Samsung was discussing earlier. And those learnings are really what propels us into that next level of excellence that we wouldn't have reached if we just had sort of happy, flawless campaigns in the past.
They were also talking about snacking. So there was a lot of good stuff that the Samsung crew was talking about. Well, thank you so much, Megan. I think 3 takeaways are that AI and tech advancements our business needs. People and teams should be embracing the change for future success. Maybe everyone will be doing that 20% of their time figuring out new tech. Data fidelity is key. For AI to be successful, we need to make sure that the data is plugging in is powerful and correct. And then personalization at scale is attainable. And AI is a way to make it a reality. And I think it's so cool that your job is a mix of consumer experience and media, because what you're talking about is bringing those worlds together to really delight those consumers. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan.